This movie's what you get when your mom says, we have Die Hard at home. I'm Seth, and it's day 39 of the Ticket Stub Movie Club. Today's movie, Paul Blart, Mall Cop. What's your favorite Happy Madison movie? This one's directed by Stephen Carr, who's going to be back on this list for movie 43, and it stars Kevin James, Jayma Mays, and is produced by Adam Sandler. This is how we're kicking off 2009. Paul Blart can have its super cute moments. It's really pushing to pay off emotional beats. It's the bubblegum Die Hard, so it makes sense that Rashida's song is the ringtone in this movie. It's probably one of my favorite recurring jokes. I think there's also something sweet about online dating in the late aughts. It was the butt of the joke then, and now it's the #1 way for people to meet in 2025. I just wish his journey could have been a little deeper. Unfortunately, the Adam Sandler trope of using women as prizes for men to earn by the end of the movie is very present here. Just be glad I didn't go see Pixels, or we'd really have to talk about this. Paul Blart, Mall Cop. So let's start off with my review that I would have had at the time walking out of the theater. I saw this at the end of January, dump month, yes I know. This movie carries a 60+% on Rotten Tomatoes. I think that's pretty earned here. This is a really, really cute film. I distinctly remember as a teenager loving these male power fantasy stories. I could sit around and imagine while I was in community college, the college being taken over by gunners and being able to take them out with my advanced weapons and fighting knowledge. That makes movies like this and Taken, which is the next one we're going to talk about, really, really fun for a teenager to watch. Observe and Report also comes out later this year. It's also in this list. So I'm excited to get to what is the R-rated version of this movie, which is already based on an R-rated movie in Die Hard. The hostage situation thing was just a hot thing for them to do back then. When you pull a movie back to make it more 4-quadrant family friendly though, I think it loses a little bit of something. Our villain here, the performance is catty and fun and has a bunch of one-liners, but unfortunately when you compare it to its source material with Die Hard, and I'm saying source material kind of loosely here, I understand this is not an exact remake, but this is a family-friendly version of that story. They go so far as to do the air vent bit within this movie, much to a good laugh as well. It never dips its toes into parody. This is a very direct comedy version of this story. But like I just mentioned, there's a lack of really intentional camera work that prevents our villain from ever reaching any kind of real heights. I think it prevents some of the jokes from working by just opting to always go for a medium to wide, and I know that's where a lot of the funny stuff can happen, especially with very pratfall-esque humor here. But I think a little more intentional camera work really could have elevated the drama to the point that it would have felt more like a Die Hard. And yeah, Adam Sandler is known for making movies for men where women are the prize. Like, if Paul Blart actually has character development, which I can begrudge that to you, Amy does not at fucking all. I don't even know if we really learn anything about her because the movie's disinterested in her being a character and is much more interested in her being the prize, the damsel in distress. And these kind of things are just, I feel like it's a little weak. I feel like it's cheap, especially when his daughter is introduced into this hostage situation to begin with. I don't even know if the Amy character was totally necessary other than to show that he's a lonely guy. And again, a lonely guy learning to love himself feels a lot more proactive than a guy that just gets the girl because he's finally badass enough. Honestly, that's my only real gripe from the movie, apart from the really office feeling stuff. This was a time in cinema where TV was informing our movies more than movies informed our TV. Steve Carell and his performance on The Office, it was absolutely on fire, and so everyone wanted to do unlikable protagonists. We have our Jim types, we have our Dwight types, we have our Michael Scott types, we have our Pam types. It's all here in this working environment. At least they flesh out the side characters a little bit. For instance, I think Pahood is a really, really hilarious side character. He gets some of the best lines. He's so dramatic. He's got swag. I really ended up enjoying his character a lot on my recent watch. But even within that character, the male power fantasy on display here is really showing up as weak and as insecure as it can present in real life. The movie doesn't seem interested in making fun of that, and I think that's where they really lose out here. This could have been a 10 out of 10 comedy if it just wanted to delve a little bit deeper into some of the ideas, and instead takes its time with overly long drunken montages and the hypoglycemia jokes, which, they can land. The lollipop is a really fun payoff for all of that. But it's honestly funny to me that the movie opens with him saying that he's happy where he is, and then the women in his life push him further into seeking a date. That's how we get into the online dating aspects of this movie, which pops up more often than I remembered it. Sandler and his crew are really good at stringing things along through a movie that it doesn't feel like the jokes are ever one note. They always have extra layers to come back and build on themselves. But there's a few plot holes, a few contrivances that does make this a little harder to follow the plot in any way that helps it make sense. So even though the movie's a really tight, I think 86 minutes, it feels like it sometimes overstays and understays its welcome in different ways. I did end up listening to Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon alongside this movie. If you've never heard of that, the Blart Side of the Moon is a like meme way of watching the movie. I was kind of surprised at how well it linked up. They actually do kind of fall hand in hand here. I think that's purely coincidental, but the movie also has a classic rock background. Although all the songs are just one adjacent with covers instead of financing the real songs. Why they did that, maybe it was a money thing, who knows. If we're talking money, this one absolutely made its bag. This is a cheap movie to make. 25 mil is not a super expensive movie. That's on the bigger end of indie or the lower end of big budget, depending on how you want to slice the bread. And this made all of its money back and then some. I can totally see why it got greenlit for a sequel. Maybe there's a trilogy to pull out of this. I'm not the biggest fan of Kevin James. I can be. I can enjoy him. And honestly, his physical prowess, I totally forgot. He actually shows up for a really committed role. I think about him bouncing off the plexiglass and throwing his shoulder. His legs pop almost straight up in the air. That's tough to do as a seasoned athlete. Kevin James can really, really fucking throw down. This also, oddly enough, reminds me of another movie that we're going to talk about in this year, 2009, Extract. That one's a Jason Bateman vehicle, which I think, if I remember correctly, does a lot of the comedy better. And then, like I mentioned, Observe and Report is the Seth Rogen R-rated version of this, where I think he plays a psychopath, if I remember correctly. So this was a really odd time in the theaters, and I was really just trying to go see everything. And I think it's cool the way that so many of these movies were similar to each other, but just a little bit different and adjacent. This also ends up being a male power fantasy double feature, because after this, we're going into Taken, and I'm really excited to talk about Taken. So go ahead and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube or TikTok, where I'm posting these full reviews. You can also get early access to these over on my Patreon, where we can chat about any of the movies I've talked about so far. If you want to chat with me live, I also stream while I'm editing this video, so that'll be over on TikTok and Twitch. My other updates are on Blue Sky and Instagram. I also post to Threads kind of half-assedly. If you prefer Letterboxd, I'm logging all 365 movies over there. I'll see you tomorrow.